Hey everyone, welcome back to the Young Adult Podcast here for Harbor Point Church. We're so glad you could join us today for episode 9 of our podcast. We're joined again by Dorian Johnson and Lexi Schwartz, and my name is Nate Shuloff. I forgot my own name for a second, but it's just one of those days. But we're excited to be back talking with you guys again today. So before we get into today's topic, we know that we're coming to the end of this quarantine season. We're getting really close to it. I know that some places are starting to open it back up. And so it's just going to be a short while till we get back to not only in-person recording of the podcast, but also in-person meeting up together. So I hope that you guys are excited to be able to do that soon. And along with, you guys are almost to summer, so keep pushing through school if you guys are still going through that too. But kind of on that sort of topic and kind of leading into what we're going to be talking about today, when it comes to, what we do in our lives, our daily lives, we can spend it with keeping busy with doing stuff like school and work and, whatever you have going on. But we're starting to get to the point where summer's just about here. Some of you guys are about to be done with school for summer. And this could just start to lead to some pretty boring times. And we can start to distract ourselves with things that just aren't really necessary in our lives and can completely consume our lives too. And one of those big things that can start to consume our lives is social media, which is what we want to discuss today. And of course, the three of us, we have some experience with social media. I've had some of my social media for 10 years now, 11 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. And for the rest of these guys, they've had it for quite a while too. So, we've all been through social media times. We've all had those moments where, it's been a pretty big part of our lives and it starts to consume our lives as well. So, with that, why don't we kind of get into this discussion about social media? Starting off with, again, we can start to create our identity around social media. It can really start to kind of create who we want to be. So yeah, why don't we start to discuss that? Lexi, I know that this is a pretty big topic for you that has been set on your heart for a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go ahead and get that started.
Yeah. I mean, I've had social media. I think I had started social media when I was like,
There we go.
I think I was, I don't know, 12 maybe.
Okay.
I think I was
Okay.
12. And so I've had it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I got Instagram for the first time and I started to follow people that like I knew from my community, like I played basketball with. And I remember for the first time I like posted a picture. And I'll never forget, this girl commented, and I had only ever like opposing team played basketball with her. Like I did not know this person.
Right.
And I remember her commenting on my picture, haha, you're so funny. Love you, Lex. And I'll never forget. I was like, A, I cannot believe she even knew my name. And B, she was commenting and I was so confused because like, we don't know each other. Like you don't talk to people you don't know. And I think that like, I'll never forget that. And that hits me now. Like, even just thinking, we interact all the time on social media with people we don't know, and they watch and they know intimate details of your life. Like, they probably know who all your friends are, what you typically do in a week, what your favorite latte is, and they've never even met you.
Right.
And so it's super weird to think that we really like platform our lives in a way that people watch. And anyone can. I mean, if you have a private account, that's one thing. But like anyone can watch and know intimate details of your life. And I think as I've gone older, I don't take that as lightly. I don't actually have a public Instagram account anymore, just because I kind of got tired of it and I felt like it like took up so much of my time. And honestly, right now I'm grateful for it because like I don't even know how much time I would spend on my phone. Like if I had it, like I have TikTok and I spend time on TikTok, and
we're going to pray extra hard for you right now.
Yeah, honestly, please, I will take it.
Oh boy.
But yeah, like social media, it's just interesting. It's interesting that people can like be a part of your everyday and not actually be present with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, sort of on that, for having it for 10 years, it became a pretty serious consumption for me, especially during high school. You're kind of to that age where your identities start to kind of, well, one, it starts to become your own, but then people start to look more at your identity and who you are. And so, of course, with growing up through social media, especially in high school, a lot of people start to look at your identity in social media as well. And so for me, I started really putting my identity about halfway through high school into social media of just how I looked, like what people saw of me, like I was trying to get likes, I was trying to get comments, not gonna lie too, this is pretty embarrassing, but I was also trying to get, I was single, I wanted a girlfriend, and so I was trying to, like, hey ladies, trying to post like that. But I was really trying to create my identity through social media just because, people only were looking, at that side of me. And so it was really important that, I looked my best. I only posted the best things about my life that were happening. And if it wasn't getting enough likes in a certain amount of time, I would take it down just because, like, oh, I can't be known as this guy that only gets, 50 likes on his photo compared to 100 on the rest, And so it became this pretty big consumption for me. And it started getting to this point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I was spending hours and hours and hours trying to perfect my Instagram and social media and stuff like that. And so it can be a huge part of our lives and just an addiction almost. And we start to kind of worship it a little bit more than who God actually intended us to be in our own identity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I think that like people always say like, or not always, but there are people who say like social media can be like an idol. But if you think about it, our social media platforms are strictly to promote ourselves. And so who's like the real idol in the situation? Like, is it the fact that you love Instagram, or do you love like being on Instagram because you love that feeling of people liking your pictures and the recognition that you get?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're more idolizing yourself in that instance than you're actually idolizing the social media. Just because, you're trying to really perfect yourself, even though, again, God intended you to be this certain way, and in his image, you're perfect. And so, of course, we don't think that all the time. And social media is just kind of one of those platforms where we're just like, you know what, like I can try to make myself perfect on here by, posting my best photos, by making it look pretty with my VSCO filters or something like that, and we start to create this rebranding of our identity, which, it's not great.
Yeah. I remember one of my old teammates when we were swimming, like in middle school and stuff, we started to get Instagrams, and it was like just a fun thing where we could share memes with each other. And like, those were the days, dude. Just no one cared. You got a funny meme. Like that's all you need to worry about. That's what it's about. But then as we got into high school, I remember one of my friends, he went through like a lot of stuff, but he really started changing. And I remember watching him restart his social media feed like 3 times. Like, we all had Instagram and Snapchat, but he like rebranded himself like over the course of 4 years, 3 different times completely, where he'd try something new or something more trendy, and I just watched it consume his life, where like it ruined his romantic relationships. It ruined friendships. Like it could just see him try to become this perfect thing that he wasn't. And it just wore him down each post. He didn't get enough likes, or the filter was wrong, or his caption just wasn't right. And he would stress about that so much. And I'm trying to tell him like, bro, this isn't what it's about. Like, have more fun with this. This thing is meant to like bring you joy, not pain.
Right.
He's like, no, dude, we got to get this perfect. I've never been a victim of like falling prey to social media. I don't care about it too much. I only have it to like make my mom happy. But I remember just watching his life fall apart because he was so consumed with it. And this was a good friend who's like, he went to church all the time. He read his Bible. He loved Jesus.
Right.
But he put his faith in this, and his life just fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally, I've seen where he's come from. That was a pretty big part of my life again, and so it can also just be this thing too, where of course we look at other people's Instagrams, to compare them to ours, or, you start to see their lives played out on Instagram too, and start to compare it to our own lives. And even to the point where, like, if you look at relationships, and we kind of discussed this a few weeks back when it came to the relationship talk with Jeff and Shara, but social media came up just because we're in this day and age where, we have couples posting on Instagram about like their happy lives that they're going through and how everything's perfect. And then you look, maybe you're in a relationship and you start to look at your relationship, say, well, mine's not that perfect. Mine doesn't look that good. Mine isn't that happy as they're, showing that it is. When the reality is they're probably going through the same things you are. They're just showing what is going best in their lives. And so then that starts to kind of mess with you a little bit and say, well, you just because you can't see that, you start to perceive that as, I'm not as good anymore. Or, my relationship's not that perfect. And that goes for even our own lives outside of relationship too, of just looking at other people's lives and seeing how happy they are, or, that everything's, just dandy in their life just because that's what they're posting.
Yeah. Well, that's like the danger of social media in general. It really is in and of itself a filter for your life.
Right.
It's just a highlight reel. So basically they're saying like, this is me, this is authentically myself, this is what you're seeing.
Right.
But no one's really seeing their true self when you're looking at someone's Instagram account, especially not like as social media progresses. It's like people have learned, because when social media started, I think we can all say that like people were not trendy. Like at the beginning of it, no one cared about trendy. No one knew how to be trendy. But now there's become a culture of this is what is trendy on social media. And if you're not like with it, if you're not in it, you're not going to get as many people following you, even if it's people like people you have a day-to-day life with are less likely to follow your account, which is just, it's a weird concept. And so these filters, they really blind us from being able to see our authentic selves. And then now you've taken the idolization, I'm idolizing myself in this social media, and now you're idolizing other people, because like you said, Nate, you're going to see other people's lives and you're going to be like, oh, I want their relationship, I want their lifestyle, I want to go all the cool places they go.
Right.
And that's not what life is about at all. And it's just crazy to see, like, as time goes on, how also we do things for social media. Like, instead of hanging out with our friends to like be in community and have fun, we're like, oh, let's go take pictures for the gram. Like, let's go to the beach so we can take a good Instagram picture. Like that's just such a wild concept that we like, instead of just taking in moments in life with our friends and our relationships, we actually do things so that people will see us on a platform and we look through a lens rather than looking at things in real life.
Yeah, for sure. One of the, it's funny that you said, social media wasn't intended for it to be just a place to post your trendiest pictures and stuff like that. It was this space to be able to share your life with other people that you're friends with. And I even remember getting my Facebook profile. The reason I got it was because my sister moved up to San Francisco and I had no way to communicate with her because I didn't have a phone or anything. And so Facebook was my way of communicating and connecting with her. And so it started off as really this exact place that it was meant to be, of just connecting with people that you actually couldn't connect with or actually be there with and whatever, And so it ended up turning into this huge ordeal where it totally consumed my life just because my entire identity was put into it. And so it's interesting to think about how far social media has come in the past 10 years, but also just how bad it's gotten just because of the amount that people have put into it. And of course, our own identity, it may be placed in social media, but at the same time, God didn't intend for that. He intended for our identity to be built with Him and in Him. And of course, while social media is definitely a big part of our lives, it doesn't have to be a bad part of our lives too. There can be really good things about social media too that we have the opportunity to use, and especially during this time where we are stuck in quarantine or our entire lives are based around the internet right now, just because that is basically our only option. We don't really have that much to do outside of this. And so there are definitely ways that we can glorify God through social media. Why don't we start talking about that as well? And one of the things that I at least have seen through social media was, of course, can you consider this podcast a way of social media? I don't know if you really can.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, by definition, this is a social thing because there's multiple people here interacting, and it is a form of media. So I think it fits.
Right. So at least for our community, it's been really interesting to see how everyone's kind of grown closer together through this. You know, before quarantine even started, of course, none of us knew what to expect. But at least there's this. Dorian, you're now sideways.
Hold on.
What is happening?
Don't worry about this. I'm fixing this.
You do
There's
your
a
own
slight
thing.
problem.
Okay. But before quarantine even started, we were in the space of course, you know, we're living our lives. We're doing the thing that God called us to do and everything. But then quarantine started, and it just kind of completely shaked up what ministry actually looked like. But then through this entire time, at least for what I've seen from our community ourselves, I don't know what you guys have gone through, at least if you're outside of our community listening in, you guys may have either had a different experience or same experience, whatever it may be. But at least for our community, we've seen just a growth in just love for each other. You know, just because we haven't been able to communicate outside of this or be able to meet together or, you know, whatever that looks like, we've at least been able to meet online through social media in different forms like Zoom or through the podcast or Discord or whatever the social aspect may be. We've been able to grow consistently and completely love each other through that. And that's just been super wild to see, just because beforehand, you know, you saw this growth and you saw this love happening, but it wasn't that close. But now the community is super close with each other. And that's just, to me, incredible to see. So at least for me, that's one way I've been seeing God work through, especially this season, through these social media aspects. I don't know what else you guys have seen, or how we could use social media for God's good, or the betterment of you know, loving God. And
Yeah. I like what's the right word? I can't think of the right word, so this is just gonna be blunt. But a while back, like I went through this phase where I wanted to put Bible verses in my Insta bio, but I wanted to get like the most obscure Bible verses that told a good story, but were like just totally whack or something. And like my intention was to start up a conversation and just like, hey, someone DMs me, hey, what does your bio mean or something, just something like that, just start that conversation. And I never got it. And then like I kind of just gave up on that. And as soon as I did, a friend texted me like, hey, how come you're not putting Bible verses in your bio anymore? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, every time you changed it, I would look it up and like
awesome.
learn something new. I'm like, seriously? You didn't want to tell me that or anything, but whatever. But like there's little stuff like that where I've just found like you just throw in little bits of encouragement. Or one of my friends, he's like this really big guy in the swimming world. Every time he does a post, he throws in a Bible verse, but he just doesn't reference it. So a lot of people say like, oh, you're so inspirational, you're just talking about love and compassion. And then when they say that, he's like, no, that's Jesus talking, I'm just quoting him, you know. But like little stuff like that, it does go a long way. I remember one time I put in the verse out of 2 Kings chapter 2, and there's a lot of context with it, but it's basically a bunch of kids ran into a bear and didn't make it out alive. And I put that in my bio, and a friend texted me, he's like, what is wrong with you? Like, you work in youth ministry, like you have a lot of younger people looking up to you, like why would you do that? I'm like, well, that's the point, to start a conversation. And then like we talked about the content, and it ended up being like this great thing where like you started on this journey to faith. But like little stuff like that doesn't have to be huge. Like you don't have to draft this incredible sermon and then put it in your description of a photo of Jesus or something. Just
Right.
little stuff like that makes more of a difference than the big stuff.
Yeah.
Because if it's something big, people can just ignore it. But they pick up on the little things, which is just weird about humans, but that's who we are, and God made us just to be this beautiful, messy thing.
Mm-hmm. True that. Yeah, one of the things that at least I've seen on my social media, and I don't always do this just because I've gone past the point of social media being a big addiction for me or anything. But now it's just kind of one of those things where I never post, I never do much on my social media. It's just kind of there now. I don't really do much. But at least from what I've seen on other people's social medias, I love getting to see just, I guess, the different pages that they follow. Because some of them follow these Christian pages where, you know, they'll post a scripture and then they'll share their story and everyone gets to see. But at least for me, some of those scriptures are just like out of the blue, but they really hit me hard. you know, in these times of like, especially being on social media, you just don't think that this is a place where Christians can share about their faith and stuff like that, just because that's not really the main purpose of the social media, or at least how we perceive it. But people will share that, and I'll just be going through social media and looking through photos and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden this Bible verse will come up, and it's just like, you know, a rad verse, or I don't know any examples, but those things just hit me hard. And it's just great to see that, you know, even in the midst of this horrible looking social media, sometimes we just get to see a little bit of God pop in there, and that's just sometimes something that we just really need to see. Something.
I always really admire people's social media accounts who they post what God's doing in their life. Like they'll post a picture and then they'll say things like, oh my goodness, like today God did this thing. And they like give, instead of saying like, oh, I went to this beach and I took this picture, right. They're like, guys, like the weather today was amazing. Praise God. Like even just seeing things like that, like giving credit where credit's due. Cause I think social media, like we can take I could take all the credit for taking a picture of an amazing beach at just the right lighting with the M5 filter. Like I could really go for it.
Preach it, girl.
But the truth is like all credit is really due to God.
Right.
And so I love seeing people's accounts who like they say things like that, or they even like your account doesn't have to blare Jesus. But if you claim to be a Christ follower and your social media account is like a profile of your life, like I love to see people like promote that Jesus is like the reason why they exist.
Right.
I think that's like, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do, like as Christians. And if we're gonna, like, if social media is something we're gonna use, it might as well be a platform even for like evangelism. Like there are going to be people who follow you who aren't believers. And so if you say little things or you post here and there about like what God's doing in your life, maybe God worked a miracle. Like we've talked about testimonies for the last couple of weeks. Like maybe it's a place where you kind of talk about your testimony, which is like, that can be pretty personal, but like we've talked about, your testimony doesn't have to be the most intimate moment of your life. And so if you're sharing that with people, I think it's a special thing. Like never in the history of the world have we had such easy contact with the world.
Yeah.
And we have that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll take advantage.
Yeah. And of course, only 10 plus years ago, I don't know when social media actually started, but you know, we had, like you said, we had to do everything person to person. Of course, that wasn't always the easiest thing to do, but now we have this platform where we can literally evangelize to our friends and to our families and just to anyone really that could see our profile about God. And like, how cool is that we have that opportunity to do that? It is the easiest thing to do. And of course, you could just hide behind your phone at the same time doing it. Doing evangelism in person, you can't hide. You can't like hide behind a wall and say, hey, do you know about God? But now you can hide behind your phone and talk about God. Like, come on. It's pretty rad that we have that type of platform.
A friend of mine in high school, like I would post Bible verses all the time and little stuff like that, and nothing would happen. And then a different friend, he posted like a real quick thing like, hey, God's just been so good to me this month. So something super simple like that. And that one friend, I mean, he was a hardcore atheist and stuff, and everything he saw and he liked every single one of my posts. And when he saw that other friend post that one thing, he immediately called me and said, Dorian, I want to give my life to the Lord. And I'm like, seriously? Dang. That's what it took? Like, you ignoring all my work, but whatever. You know what? God wins. But God doesn't want little stuff like that, it makes a difference.
That's cool, though.
That's super rad. I love hearing those types of stories, and that's totally just random too. That just that little bit of a post would just completely change this guy's life. That's awesome. Yeah. So it's crazy to think what social media can do in our lives. And of course we have to wrap up here. And you know, this can be a talk that we just continue on talking about. And of course, after this, we're having our virtual gathering at 7 p.m. So we invite you guys to join us during that and continue this conversation about social media, how it may have impacted your life, or you know, some of the struggles you may face through it, or you know, whatever it may be. We want to discuss that with you further. If you guys want to sign up for that, you can actually go to our social media on Instagram. The link is in our bio to sign up for the virtual. Good plug right there about social media. And the social media is Harbor Point Young Adults, just so you know. But anyways, we have this platform, and of course, it can be taken as something that can be really harmful in our lives. It can really take up our own identity, and it can fully consume us. But at the same time, we also have this platform where we can actually use it for our betterment and for God's good. You know, we can take this as a platform of being evangelistic, or just to love on people, whatever it may be. We can use this platform to do so. And of course, however you may actually end up taking it, one's a little bit easier than the other, or vice versa. However it may be, we have this awesome opportunity to use social media. And of course, I think most of us do have social media nowadays. And so why not try posting about a godly verse, or start putting a verse in your bio, or post a worship song you've been really into lately, or anything like that. Just start putting love on your social media. You may never know. There it is. You may never know who you might reach out to. Because I'm tired. It's been a long week, but
You're
we're
doing
getting
great.
through. We're getting through. But yeah, I think that has to do with, of course, God just giving us this awesome platform, and so we just have to take advantage of that, and start to use that for His betterment. So, yeah, with that, this has to be the end of our podcast, sadly. But again, after this, we're having a continued discussion on social media, and so we invite you guys to hop in on our Zoom call for that, and we can't wait to see you there. But anyways, we hope to see you guys soon. We're so close to the end of this whole thing. We're excited to finally, be able to meet in person soon, whenever that may be. But until then, we're going to keep doing these things through social media, keep loving you guys, keep discussing whatever you guys may want us to talk about. And yeah, we're excited to keep on doing this. So guys, this is going to be the end of our podcast. And we'll see you guys either after this or next week for episode 10. Crazy to think about.
Episode 10? That's my favorite number.
Crazy.
Oh, it's going to be a good one.
But yeah, thanks again for joining in, guys. We can't wait to see you guys soon.